to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and Taya master Anne-Marie Young. This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And for those of you who celebrate such things, happy Halloween. And for those who don't celebrate it, well, just don't celebrate it. It's very simple. Stay away from it. It's not good for you. but we have a special guest joining us today. Her name is Laura Mangum Broom, and she is the author of Flourishing After Adversity, and she is a resilience coach. And I have to say, Anne-Marie, when I saw that she was a resilience coach, I figured, first of all, she's like right in our wheelhouse. I mean, it's exactly the kind of thing we'd like to talk about. But we've never really have we ever had a resilience coach? I don't remember actually having somebody self-identifying that way.
No, and many more should.
I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not quite sure why that is. Maybe we'll find out from her. Maybe she knows the answer to that. Who knows? Okay, well, let's find out. So, Laura, first of all, welcome to the program. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. I'm doing well.
Good to hear that. And yeah, let's talk about resilience and how you became a resilience coach. Now, one thing that I do know from doing this show for a number of years now is that there's almost always a story behind how somebody becomes a coach of something, because they go through something like there's some sort of a crash and burn kind of a thing or a trauma or something. They come out the other side through this tool that was wonderful. And they say, oh my God, I got to share this with the world. And they become a coach. I suspect your story is kind of like that, but we want to hear the particulars. So what's your story?
It is. I crashed and burned 3 years ago, and right at the beginning of COVID. And the quick version is I had a heart transplant in April of 2020, and everything went fine. It was very successful. I came home on Mother's Day weekend, so excited to spend Mother's Day with my family. And then a month later, I found out that I was getting divorced.
Oh my.
And so it was a double whammy with quarantines, because, we were under a quarantine with COVID. And after my heart transplant, the heart doctors told me I needed to quarantine for a year to ensure that I didn't catch infection, or my body rejected my heart. So I was pretty much at my lowest point. The summer of 2020. And I just I realized I went through my grief, and I went to a counselor. It was our marriage counselor. I was seeing her for individual counseling. And she just really helped me process my grief, and started asking me, so what are you going to do this coming week? And she kept pointing me looking forward. And I realized, there's a lot of things I can't do, but there are things that I can do. And so I started focusing on what I could do. Now, of course, I was very limited in my options at the time, because COVID shut everything down, and it was hard. That was probably the lowest I've been. I mean, I hit rock bottom, and then I let the floor open up, and I hit rock bottom again. And so it was a hard climb out of the hole. But I was determined, because I had a brand new heart, and I was 58 years old, and I had the rest of my life to live. And so I decided I'm going to keep moving forward, and had to figure it out on my own. It wasn't a lot of resources I could tap into. And so yeah.
I mean, I went through divorce over the past year, starting about a year ago this time of year, but I didn't have a heart transplant to go with that. I mean, I just know what it was like going through that alone. I can't imagine adding the other part onto it. That's just mind-boggling. But congratulations for surviving it, and apparently thriving through this resilience concept. I mean, tell us how that kind of came out of this story.
Well, when I started having to look forward because um, the divorce wasn't what I wanted, but I had to accept it. And I think once I started going through those stages of grief, and when I got to the anger stage, that's kind of when things started changing for me. And at first, I thought I was angry at my husband, but then I realized I'm angry at myself for just keep reliving the pain. And like I said, it's like you've got a new heart, Laura. Start living. You get a second chance at life. You get to start basically from scratch
Mm,
again. And what are you going to do with this second opportunity? And I think that's when it started changing for me because instead of focusing on what I couldn't do, I started focusing on what I could do. I can do this. I can't do that, but I can do this. And it just started out slowly like I can get out of bed. And I can move to the couch, and then a couple of days later, it was I can get out of bed. I can move. I can put a shirt on, change my pajama top into a shirt, and move to the couch. And so
mhm.
it just slowly was going. Well, if I can do, why don't I go ahead and get dressed? Why don't I go ahead and do this? And I can do that. And so it came about like that. And I just every day I focused on what I could do, and I started to practice gratitude. That is when things really escalated because, again, focus on what I was grateful for. I had to move out of my house, but I moved in with my twin sister, and thank goodness for that. We're we're known as the giggle twins because we giggle all the time because we've gone through our whole life experiencing very many similar situations. So, she can give me a look, I can say a word, and we know exactly what we're talking about. So laughter, laughter really helped um, build resilience too, because laughter is kind of like a painkiller, and it releases endorphins. It um, can really help your attitude and um, bring positivity in your life. And so I just didn't want to be miserable. I decided I don't want to be the middle-aged divorced woman whose husband left her for somebody else. I just refused to. So I thought, I'm not divorced. I'm single. I'm going to start looking at the positive of my situation.
Wow, yeah. Well, you hit upon many of our famous, yeah. Well, they're famous in a way too, but our favorite themes there.
Yes.
The theme of gratitude, the theme of focusing on what you want rather than what you don't want. I mean, those are
Hmm.
things we talk about a lot around here.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I'm just impressed that you're able to do it in the midst of the double whammy. Because I know just dealing with the divorce, just that alone, dealing with that and trying to get myself, focusing on something to laugh at and feeling grateful and so forth was a chore at times. I mean, I that
Oh
took
yeah.
work. It
Hmm.
took a lot of work. So I can't even imagine trying to do that while also dealing with the fact that, oh my God, I'm laid up with a new heart. I mean, whoa, that's a lot to deal with. And yet you did it. You did it.
And in COVID,
And in COVID,
which was a
yeah, in
tough time
lockdown.
for a lot of people.
I mean, oh my goodness.
Well, I did call on like a lot of memories of stories of people who have overcome adversity. And I remember when I was growing up reading about Helen Keller, and that's always somebody I go back to because I can't imagine going through the world, going through life blind and deaf. I mean,
Mm,
talk about and I'm not. I'm neither. And so sometimes when we put things in perspective, we can go through bad things, bad times, but it doesn't define us. It's something that I've been through, but I'm an overcomer. I've been through breast cancer. I've been through the loss of a child. I've
wow.
I've I found myself in a lot of circumstances. I never thought I'd be in. I don't go small. I go big or go home. I
Apparently,
tell
yeah. Whoa.
I tell people I haven't had the flu in over 20 years. I'm not a sickly person, but I just just give me the big stuff. I can deal with that.
She says that
Wow.
so
I can't lose
calmly, Anne-Marie.
weight, but
I'm literally like, I think one of those things would have floored me. I can see where you get the word resilience from in your
Yeah.
coaching.
Yeah, because if you go through all that, the only way you're going to get through all that is if you're resilient.
For sure.
well, and it is. And, adversity can make you bitter or better. And I chose better because why go through life just miserable? I mean, we have choices, and I just decided I don't. I have another son. He just got married this summer, and I found out recently I'm going to be a grandmother.
Oh,
And I mean, I have
congratulations.
so much to live
Congratulations.
for. Thank you. But that's we always have choices. And I think that's what I want people to know. If you don't like your situation, I mean, it's not like you can just, snap your fingers and you change your situation. But I truly believe, if you want to change your life, you have to choose to do it, and you can find a way. And that's what I want to share with people is, there's always hope, and hope isn't wishful thinking. It's taking action, and it's making a plan of action and moving forward, just constantly moving forward, baby steps.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Now, the book, Flourishing After Adversity, is that a retelling of your story, or is that more of a teaching moment, or is it a combination of the both? I don't know exactly, but what's the meaning of
Both,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I found out when I was going through my heart transplant, and there's an app called Caring Bridge where you can just kind of write a journal if you're going through health issues, and people can access it so that you're not having to contact everybody with your situation. And during when I was going through all my tests for the heart transplant, I was having a lot of fun with it because unfortunately I'm a ticklish person. And when they're poking and prodding and I'm giggling and I mean it was really comical because at one point my feet are the ticklish in my neck. And at one point they had to take run a test and put a little sleeve on my toe. And I told the tech, I said, if you can get that tape on my toe, you're free to hold my foot down, whatever. But I'm gonna tell you, I'm just so ticklish. And he was I had him laughing, and he said, I'm sure somebody's gonna come in the room thinking, what is he doing to that patient? And so I was recounting all this stuff, and my friends and family were laughing, and they was like, I can't imagine going through this. And so as I went through the heart transplant and the divorce as well, I just started realizing I'm finally finding ways because to get through this, and because I couldn't find it on my own, and so I thought if I'm going through a struggle of trying to how do you recover from something as devastating, as these circumstances, somebody else is out there wanting to know how do I do it too, because I didn't want to read somebody's memoir. I wanted to find out, give me an action plan, tell me the steps I need to take. I don't need you to solve my problem, but just help me move forward. And so that's why I wrote Flourishing After Adversity. The subtitle is it's a 3-step action plan to transform pain into purpose and embrace joy again. And that's exactly what I did over these past 3 years to get to where I am today. Is I I I just thought I don't want anybody else to experience having to figure it out on their own. And and so I figured I want to write a manual because I didn't have a manual how to do it. So it's a framework. It's a 3-step framework that helps you. The first step is developing a growth mindset to overcome change, and I think that was the hardest thing for me to do because, when you have the rug pulled out from underneath you, where do you how do you pick yourself up and move on? And my whole life changed. That's scary. Uncertainty. How do you make decisions? And so that's what I talk about. And the second step is discovering your superpowers to overcome challenges. And so when I had to figure out what am I going to do to make a living during COVID while recovering from a heart transplant, I had to say, well, what are you good at? And I used to run a business with my husband. And so it's like, well, I know how to do that. I know how to train people. I know how to, do this and do that. And I can everybody was starting online businesses during COVID. So it's like, well, what can I do? And so I thought I'm good at being resilient, and I can teach people how to do this. So so resilience is one of my superpowers. And then the third step is to think outside the box and uncover opportunities. And that is one of my favorite. It just problem solving. Sometimes it doesn't have to be difficult. Sometimes the solution can be right in front of you, and it's just how do you use all your skills, your talents, your passions, and your support network. How do you use all that in new combinations, different combinations, to find the opportunities? And there are so many out there. There's so many possibilities. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, that's true. Probably the first thing you have to do is decide that they're out there, otherwise you won't spot them. But before we get there, I want to start with the first, the first of the 3 pieces for you, the growth mindset, which is something that is near and dear to my heart because, again, there's another topic we talk about a lot. But from your perspective, what is a growth mindset? What makes up a growth mindset?
A growth mindset is just not having those limited beliefs. It's a growth mindset is you can either be successful or just I'm just not yet. I'm still learning, but I'm going to get there. And that was something that I had to tell myself when I was going through the divorce, because I felt like as soon as I just made a little bit of headway, something else would happen, and I'd one step forward, 3 steps back. And I would just tell myself, just keep moving forward. Just you're going to get there. You've just got to you got to keep an open mind. And with the growth mindset, you don't, well, like I said, I try not to focus on the negatives. I try to focus more on the positives. It's like I said, I can't do that, but I can do this. So you focus on what's in your control to move forward, what's in your control to change. Because there's so many. You always have control over your thoughts, your words, and your actions. That's a lot of power you have right there, because you can look for positive, look for the good in a situation. And in my case, sometimes it was like, well, thank goodness it's not worse. And so that's my default. If I think I can't find anything good in a situation, I'm going to say, well, at least it's not worse. And I'm going to find ways of how it could be worse, because then the opposite of that is the positive, and so that, to me, I've gotten so used to looking for the good. I just automatically start seeing it, and because it's like you can always find one good thing, and when you find one good thing, you might find another. And gratitude helps you see all the good in a situation.
Well, it's
You're
also a
just
habit, isn't
training
it?
your brain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're building that ongoing pattern. That's what the habit is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you just have to do it day by day. I know sometimes people will look at me and go, "Well, it's just not that easy." I know it's not easy. I, you know, you're preaching to the choir here. I know what dismal looks like, but if I can
Mm.
find it, then I know other. I tell people, I'm just an ordinary person who's been through extraordinary things. But when you start finding the joy, you start seeing the good things, life just gets so much better. And because there's a lot of stuff, bad stuff going on in the world right now. And if you just focus on the negatives, and we can't carry all that weight of the world on our shoulders, but we can focus on what's in our control. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of where that growth mindset comes. What can I do today? What can I do today to make it a better place? Or what can I do? What kind of acts of kindness can I do? And not think about me, but think about somebody else. Do a random act of kindness for somebody else.
So basically finding every single way you can to redirect your attention to what feels better, which is ultimately what resilience, persistence, growth, whatever you wanted to label it, is all about. I mean, that's what you're basically stating that very, very clearly, that it's how are you going to focus your attention? What are you going to focus on? Are you going to focus on what you don't like, or are you going to focus on what you like?
Yes, yes, because we're wired to focus on the negative, fight or flight, and I mean, I even catch myself doing that. As soon as I start focusing on that negative, it's like, but flip it, flip your thoughts and look for the good. And it's not so much like a positive affirmation, but it's actually looking for something good. And my mother-in-law used to be like that. Even when she was in early stages of Alzheimer's, she would just look at the beautiful blue sky, and look at the little green. I mean, and I would sit there and go, what are you talking about? Because I was just in my head. And then when I started seeing life through her eyes, I could be around her for 15 minutes. And by the time I left, I was in such a good mood. I was happy. And it's just because of enjoying life with her, and it's a wonderful feeling.
I love the fact that with the Alzheimer's, and just sat there, just seeing him through fresh eyes and rediscovering beauty in the day. I love going for a walk and just feeling the wind on my face, or the sun on my arms, or something. Just the very things that we don't normally notice. So it's just rediscovering the world.
And as we discover the world, or rediscover the world, to use your phrase, that's the reprogramming time. That's where we're rewiring that brain, because, like you said, Laura, we're wired for the negative, but we have the ability to rewire for the positive, which seems overwhelming, especially when you're going through crap. I mean, it just seems overwhelmingly impossible, and yet it remains true even in those situations.
It is. When you're going through tough times, it's that uncertainty, that not knowing, and you just get so overwhelmed because it's hard to make decisions. It's hard to think, what am I going to do now? And when you get emotional, your frontal cortex, you can't make those decisions because your emotions are just everywhere. And so you have to just you have to slow down, you have to practice your breathing, just calm down. And just don't ever tell a woman to calm down. I think of that. I used to know, don't tell me to calm down. So here I am going, okay. But I mean, you just have to breathe and just go, and that's when you just go back to that, what can I do? What can I do? And in the book, I talk about a 5-step problem solving method that I came up with, because I had so many decisions that I had to make, at that time, a couple of years ago. And it just got to the point where it's like, okay, what's in your control? What that you can move forward with? And so I called it the acronym I Cope. And that's kind of how the name of my business is, I Cope to Hope. And so I Cope is the 5-step problem method, and it's problem solving method, and the I stands for identify. So I have to identify the problem that's going to have the most impact that I can solve. And so I go more detail in the book, but once you identify the problem, and it doesn't need to be real big, because if it's too big, you're not going to be able to make headway. So there's an exercise, how to break it down into smaller tasks. And the C stands for what's in my control to change. And so once you can focus on changing something or moving forward, it builds your confidence, it builds your self-worth, that you're regaining control of your situation. And then the O stands for outcome. And so there's an exercise that you do to figure out, if there was no time, money, no restraints, what's the best outcome you can come up with and to solve that problem. And then you just keep going, and how can it be better? How can it be better? How can it be better? And then you do the same thing with the worst outcome, and you just kind of spiral down with that. And how could it be worse? How could it be worse? So you've got your two guardrails of what's best and what's worse. So then you start looking in the middle for the most likely outcome. And it kind of gives you a sense of reality of what will most likely happen. And so then you can come up with your plan of action, P, come up with a plan of action to move forward. And you want to set small achievable goals that you could move forward with. And then the E stands for evaluate. So you're going to evaluate along the way if you have to change anything, because you may have a solution on solving your problem, but then circumstances change. And the one thing you can always count on is change. And so that's where you have to learn to be flexible, because focus more on the journey to get to that outcome rather than the outcome itself. Because one thing that in order to be resilient, you have to be flexible. And there used to be a TV show when I was growing up called MacGyver. And well, you probably remember it.
Oh, yes.
MacGyver was this special agent. He could fly a plane with just a rubber band and a paper clip. He could make anything out of just ordinary objects. And I always thought that would be amazing to be able to have that frame of mind to just go, okay, we got to get out of here. How are we going to fly this plane? Well, let me see. I've got, I've got a piece of paper and, a ribbon, and he could, make it fly. And so that's kind of how I got to that point with my problem solving, is think outside the box. Don't just think black and white, but what are any kind of possibilities and that you can use to move forward. And ever since COVID, we can't think traditionally anymore. There was a TV show that I used to like to watch about, it wasn't Hell's Kitchen, but it was another chef that would come in and revamp these restaurants. And during COVID, he was calling these restaurants that he had helped and asking them, how are you handling things now with COVID shutting a lot of the restaurants down? And it was so fascinating to find out how these owners had pivoted to doing delivery or, ordering online, what we all got used to during COVID. And I thought, that's really somebody who can be flexible, move with the times and change, because some of those restaurants didn't want to change anything. They thought, we'll just wait it out. And so that was really inspiring to me. It's like, I have to always have that. I don't have to, I want to have that type of problem solving ability. And owning a business kind of helps me with that too. You have to think on your feet.
Yeah, actually, within my company, I have a gardening service. I encourage employees to do exactly what you're talking about. We call it MacGyvering for exactly the reason you gave, that derived from that television show. And the idea is, okay, you don't have the right tool for this, MacGyver something into it. Figure out a way to make it happen. If nothing else, pick up the phone and call us for a supply, but do something to make it work. And once you get that mindset, it's a cool mindset. You can do things.
Is that another TV show to watch?
I'm so old, they made a remake of it. I haven't seen the remake. You're old when they make remakes of your favorite shows and movies. But yeah, it's and there's some people out there that are fantastic at just, thinking off the fly. And I really admire that. I love to watch action movies, because I always put myself in the character, and I go, what would I do? Would I think to do that? And most of the time the answer is no. So I have to go. I have to say, okay, you got to start, thinking outside the box. You just, if you don't use that tool, so to speak, it's hard. It's hard to think that. But there's in my book, I talk about just little things you can do to start, little exercises too, to start thinking outside the box. And that would be like, look at an object in your house and say, what else could I use this for? And I remember when the gardening, you could make planters out of, the tractor tires, old boots. You could use anything for a planter nowadays. And I'd look at it and go, I would never think of that, and so there's lots of ways to practice, like taking a word and seeing how many other words you can come up with the same letters. It's just, you have to just start using that side of your brain to kick it into gear.
It's a funny thing, very funny thing, because ultimately when you're first trying to do that, it's hard. But if you keep trying, if you keep trying to figure out, what can I do something different here, and you develop it as a mentality, over time it actually becomes easy. In fact, what becomes difficult is working within the box. The box seems so restrictive.
It is.
Wow.
It is, and I tell you, I don't suggest anybody go through a heart transplant and a divorce to get this type of this way of thinking. There's much easier ways of doing it than. But see, I never do anything the easy way or the correct way the first time. I used to. Our family used to tease our dad, said, we've got to be, because my maiden name is Mangum. It's like, we've got to be related to the Murphys somehow, somewhere. They've got to be in our family tree, because we just, but like I tell people too, in a way that's kind of good. Like, if before GPS, I would get lost wherever I went. I'd print off the maps, and I'd use the map guides and everything, but I never, even with GPS still, if I'm going to a new place, more than likely I'm going to turn, I always turn too soon, but I never get there. But I have found so many other places, restaurants, stores, shortcuts, because I don't do it right the first time. So I see that as a good thing now, sometimes not at the time, because especially if I'm on a time crunch, but, but it's, we have to look at those, when those things happen, we have to see that as a good thing. And that's where that growth mindset comes in. A fixed mindset would say, oh, I failed to get there, to my destination. the first time. I failed at that. Well, no, if you have that growth mindset, you're going to say, oh, well, I found a new way to get there. I found a faster way. Or, you're stuck in traffic. Oh, here's that street I can turn on and it cuts into, this other street. And so you just have to look at those mistakes. They're teaching opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
If you learn from it, and try to learn from it so that you don't feel like, I don't like that word failure. It's just, that's just not a way of doing that. But there's going to be another way of making it happen or how to get there.
Yeah, we used to call
unexpected gifts.
Unexpected gifts, yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
We used to call that alternate destinations.
Yes. It is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I lived. We had moved one time in this little city in Houston. Houston is where I grew up. Houston is set up like a grid. Okay, if you miss some place, taking a couple of rights, you'll get there. And this town we lived in, there was not a straight street in that whole town, I don't think. And if it crossed a street, it changed names. So I mean, it was so confusing at first. But I remember we were driving somewhere and I said, oh, turn down here and it's faster. Because how do you know? My husband at the time said, how do you know all these shortcuts? I said, because I've gotten lost so many times. I now go, oh, I recognize that street. and it's like, oh, my mind's going like this, going, okay, so it's like I said, you have to find the sense of humor in it. Sometimes it doesn't happen right at first, but it'll come.
You also have to recognize you're filling in the map. I mean, there's a map in our head for any area that we know better and better, and the more that we know it, obviously, the more we fill in the map. Well, getting lost is a great way to fill in the map. It's not fun necessarily, but you'll fill in the map. Oh wait, I didn't know that came out here. Yeah,
I know. It truly is amazing. And then sometimes I just can confuse myself because I go, I think that restaurant's over here, or I think that store's over here, but it's I've confused myself because it's on the other side of town, or it looks familiar, but yeah, I mean, you look at things as an adventure. Yeah.
and I have to say, people from Rhode Island, which is the smallest of the U.S. states, they actually have a slightly different take on this whole thing, because it's such a small state that you really don't have a lot of new construction going in. What you have is old construction being turned into new construction, and because it happens all the time, a very favorite Rhode Islandism is to give directions on where something used to be. So if you're not from Rhode Island, you're in trouble because you have no idea what used to be there. But if you're from Rhode Island, it's like, oh yeah, that's where the Caldor used to be. I remember that. Yeah.
In the UK, we use pubs.
Yes. Okay. Same
Pubs.
idea. Right.
Everybody knows where local pubs are.
Yeah. Oh, I know small towns are like that, turn down because, well, even in Houston, native Houstonians, and the same way in San Antonio too, is, when you've lived there long enough, you have other alternative names for things that new residents or tourists aren't going to know. And so you can always tell when you're talking to somebody
who's the local,
if they're familiar. Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is very true. Well, I imagine, Emery, you experience that a lot too when Americans are coming to the UK. Well, first of all, you can tell from the accent. That's going to be pretty easy.
Yeah.
But even if they figured out how to mask the accent, you can also tell just because they just don't know the lay of the land. It becomes fairly obvious, right?
Absolutely. I mean, everything's smaller over here, and we have a lot of what you guys call traffic circles. We call them roundabouts. And people just, I mean, certainly in the town I live, we've got one that's 6 roundabouts all together, and people just look like a deer in headlights. So yeah, it's very, but when I come over to the States and I drive, your traffic lights are very different. It just takes little things to really confuse your brain.
And we do it very well.
Don't we?
I always say it's good to have a skill, you know. So we talked about the growth mindset. Let's talk a little bit about superpowers, which I think is an interesting second leg of your 3-step process. Because superpowers is something that we've talked about a lot. Different people have a different idea of what superpowers can be. But when you were thinking about it in the context of your book, what did that term mean for you? I mean, because you chose that one deliberately. Why go for superpowers?
I did, because going back to what we have control over, there's so many. I mean, the older you get, the more skills, the more talents, just your experiences all kind of come together, and it is kind of like a superpower. You have several superpowers. I mean, I joke around that my superpower is resilience, but when you start taking inventory of your personal assets, is like what I like to call it. You have so much ability and possibility when you're in situations that you feel you have no control. Recognizing and uncovering your superpowers, it's like a superpower. You are empowered to get yourself out of this situation or move forward. Like in my case, it's like I felt like I can't. There's no. I'm very limited on what I can do. But when I sat down to do my inventory, my skills, my talents, my experiences, the people that are in my support network, the people that I know business wise, the internet, YouTube. My son, he's my IT person, but he gets tickled because now I'll say, I saw this on YouTube, or I learned this off of YouTube, and and there is so much information out there that we can do ourselves. We can research, but it's really almost overwhelming. Now, I'm not saying everything on the internet, is true, but I can't tell you how many problems I've solved by going to YouTube and looking how to do this, how to do that. And so when you put all of that together, you have a lot of resources at your disposal that you're in control of to help you make decisions, help you move forward, help you look for new opportunities. That's why I say that it gets me excited talking about it, because people can be so limited and go, I'm so stuck in this situation, or I'm stuck at this job. I hate this job. I just wish there was more to life. And when you start getting this mindset, you look out in front of you, and it's like your head kind of pops up above the weeds, and you go, my gosh, there's a whole new world out there. Mm-hmm. And that is so encouraging, and it makes me get excited. And I love it when I see that light bulb moment go on with my clients, because it's like they're going, oh my gosh, I have choices, I have options. And it's like, yes, you do. And because again, going back to that box, we just put our blinders on and go, well, this is what life is. And when you develop that growth mindset, the blinders kind of fall away, and you go, oh, look at this is a whole new world. All these opportunities are out there, and how does that not bring excitement? I mean, the world is out there to enjoy, and if you don't like this, looking into moving into another job, or you don't like where you live. I mean, sometimes we don't always have choices, or we may not always have choices that we like, but there's still choices. You can like in my case, I didn't want a divorce. I didn't want to move out of my house, but I had to. But like I said before, the one thing that is constant is change. And if you don't like something, just wait a little bit longer, and it's going to change again, and maybe a new opportunity will come available. But you just have to keep saying something good is going to come, something good is going to happen. I just have to keep my eyes open and be aware, and kind of do what I can to move forward, and do what I can to nurture some relationships, and do what I can. It's just that always I can do this, I can do that. And I can keep going on and on and on.
I do love the idea of like looking forward and finding that change. But I also think there's also something quite magical in finding the beauty in the situation that you're in, and changing your wiring around the situation that you are in. And that it sometimes your mind changes, but your situation, you just see it differently. Again, it's that refocusing on the world, isn't it?
Yes, it's reframing your circumstances. And like when I moved out of my house, I loved to bake, and I had this beautiful big kitchen island that I would, especially during the holidays, I was just always baking. And moving into an apartment, I don't have that much room to bake anymore. And I had such a hard time coming to terms with moving in with my sister to an apartment. And then I started thinking, well, it is kind of good. We don't have a lot of room for stuff. So, I don't have to worry about clutter. I don't have to worry as I get older, my son going, Mom, you need to get rid of stuff. And because when our dad died, we would try to get him to clean out some closets, and he was like, no. He goes, that's going to be y'all's problem after I die. And it was. It was. And my son goes, Mom, please don't do this to me. So I thought, okay, that's a good thing with living in an apartment. We don't have a lot to clean, and, we have a garage, and, you start reframing, your life. And again, it goes back to gratitude. Gratitude was a game changer for me. It's my life was different, but different doesn't have to be bad. Different can be good.
Yeah, very true. In fact, as we're talking about superpowers, I'm also recalling a superpower I inherited from my father, which has served me very well doing this podcast, because the superpower was learning how to ask questions. My dad, I mean, you think I'm good at asking questions? You should have heard my dad. My dad could question anybody about anything in depth, 5 levels deep within about a 5-minute conversation. It was incredible to watch. So I picked up a few things from that. But actually, that is a very cool superpower. It plays out in a number of different ways, not just doing a podcast, but you were talking about how you poke your head up above the weeds and you realize, oh, there's a whole world out there. Questioning, knowing how to ask questions actually is a great way to get there. Because once you can learn, even on a rudimentary level, the ability to just follow one question with another and another, just following your nose with curiosity, you end up above the weeds. You end up in that place where you're looking out on the world and you're saying, wow, there's a lot of world out here. I didn't know about it.
That is so true. Being a former homeschool mom, that's what I would do when my boys would ask me a question. I'd answer their question with a question. And to get them to think. But yeah, I'm a why person. I like to know why. And so I love to learn. I love I like now I didn't have time for hobbies because running a business and family and all that stuff, I didn't have a lot of free time. Now I love it. I've gotten back into playing the piano. I do I crochet and I bake, and I have all this time to enjoy life. And so I'm always I go down rabbit trails all the time, because I'll see a topic and go, oh, that sounds interesting. And between YouTube and the internet, and I love to learn. And there, I'm learning a lot about podcasts now. And and I love meeting people. It's like I said, it's just once you start finding the little things to be joyful about in life, it I mean, it is every day you wake up and go, what's going to happen today? And I'd like to think that I feel that way every day. I know sometimes I don't, but when I find myself, if I wake up and I go, oh, it's another day, I just always say, what are you grateful for, Laura? What are you grateful for? And that just kind of starts getting the juices flowing, and I go, I'm grateful for this and I'm grateful for that. And because I know, prior to COVID, I was getting to a point in my life where I thought, is this as good as it gets? I was working, 60 hours a week. I just didn't have time. I didn't have time for friends. I didn't have time for anything. And it's, I wasn't appreciating life, and because I always kept putting it off. And so when I hear people, when I recognize those traits in other people, I just want to say there's so much more to life than this, but you have to be sick and tired of being sick and tired before you'll make a change, because change is scary and change is uncomfortable and change isn't always good and change is fearful. And so what I want to let people know with my story and what I've been through is, but change can be good. It can be exciting. You have to find that balance between fear, and if it, like good fear, I guess healthy fear, and anxiety, because healthy fear is kind of like I love the analogy of a roller coaster. You're standing in line and you hear, all the noise from the roller coaster and everybody's screaming and having fun, and you finally get on it and you go, what am I doing? What am I doing? And as soon as you get past that first drop, then it's fun, and then you go, oh, let's ride it again. And we just have to remember that fear doesn't always have to be bad. It can be good, but we have to recognize between, fear that leads us to panic, but fear that leads us to excitement. And you have to assess assess the risk. Just take those little steps outside of your comfort zone. And, and you go, oh, it's not that bad. I could do that again. And then another opportunity comes available and you take a little bit, go step out a little bit more outside your comfort zone. And then before you know it, you look back and you say, my gosh, look how far I've come. This is amazing. I can really do this.
Emery, do you find yourself assessing the risk like Laura is talking about when you're looking at fears in your own life?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I mean, I remember I used to love living outside my comfort zone. It just used to inspire me to do stuff. But as I've got older, I think I've gone more back into my shell. But yeah, I find fear I like the challenge of things now. I like figuring things out. I mean, just coming on sometimes doing these calls, meeting people, don't know what to talk about, but there's always something that's so invigorating about it. So yeah, I completely get that roller coaster feeling. Mm-hmm. Unless it's a spider and that fear is real.
No, not the
spider. Well, I wouldn't get on a roller coaster now. The last time I rode a roller coaster when my son was younger, when I did that first dip, I screamed and nothing came out of my mouth. And so I was like, okay, I think this is time to stop riding the roller coasters.
Oh, I still love a roller coaster.
So when you got off the roller coaster, you went over to the operator and said, may I please have my screen back? I mean, it's left up there on the hill somewhere. I don't know where
It was the strangest feeling. I realized how scared I was.
Wow.
I don't have to go on roller coasters though. I mean, I get the butterflies coming on a podcast too, because
Yeah.
just like Anna Marie said, it's, but it's, I think my message of hope, I just really want people to know it's, you can go through tough things, but it's all how you respond to it, and looking for the positive. And it's just, there's so many things that steal our joy these days, and let's don't let adversity steal our joy, and our life, our relationships with people. And we're here for a reason, and I think adversity can really help you find new purpose and meaning. And that's what I like. If you told me I would be doing this today, I'd laugh and go, no, this isn't me. I just go about my business, and but now I know what my purpose is, to help others. I truly want to let them know, if I can do it, you can do it.
That's a great message to have. Really good message. And Barbie in the live stream echoes it by saying, great encouragement, assessing risk. She liked that a lot. So the book is Flourishing After Adversity, and I presume it's available in all the usual places. But how does somebody find you? I mean, if somebody wants to reach out and share stories, and maybe even consider talking to you about, you have a coaching practice, maybe learning about that. How do they find you?
Yes. You go to my website, icopetohope.com, and that's ICOPE, the number 2, HOPE.com. And there'll be information about my book, and I'm going to be offering it for free on my website, and just pay shipping and handling when it comes out. And so there'll be some opportunities to get some free resources as well. And I do have a free resource available on my website right now, called 3 Life-Changing Hacks to Disrupt Thinking Traps and Reduce Stress. And so that kind of helps you start developing a growth mindset by focusing on what's in your control, and to help you make better decisions.
Okay, good. So we'll make sure we'll give them a link in the show notes so people can find that website. And you said the book isn't out yet. When does the book come out?
And next month.
Next month. Okay.
I just got my proof copy.
There you go. All right.
It's in the works. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Congratulations. That's really cool.
So,
one last thing that I need to share with you before you part company with us for the day. Especially since what you last said, you were talking about how you really feel like your life purpose now is to give back. That's so true of people who come onto the show. I mean, that's just a common theme, guest after guest. And something I noticed about 1.5 years, 2 years ago is that whenever guests come onto the show, there are always people who are already giving. I mean, they usually have their business models, their coaching or books or whatever it is that they're doing, but they're also putting out content. They're getting onto podcasts, they're writing social media posts, they're writing blog posts, they're putting out all this stuff, very often being consumed by people that they've never met, and they've never seen, never will meet, never will see, and they're being helped by this material, and they never find out about it. So I'd like to say, wait a minute, we should be recognize that. So on behalf of those people that you've never met, you've never seen, thank you for what you are putting out there by doing the podcast, by putting out the stuff on the website, the 3-step method, and all the stuff that you're putting out to help people that you've never met, because by doing that, you are making a difference in this world, and you should be recognized for it. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I want to help as many people as I can. Like I said, I don't want people to have to figure this out on their own. Let me help shave a lot learning curve off. and I know people can do it. They just have to choose. Again, adversity makes you bitter or makes you better. And please choose better, because there is a wonderful life out there to enjoy.
That's a beautiful way to finish it. Anne-Marie, what's the big takeaway? I mean, I always like to come to you with that one big takeaway, but what's the big takeaway that you're going to say is, this is the one that I'm taking away from today's conversation?
Wow, so much good content in this call. I think it's the baby steps, the appreciation, rediscover the world. And the one thing I took is find your superpower.
Yeah,
I
that's
love that.
superpower. That's very, very good. Good stuff. All right. So Laura, thank you for joining us and for sharing all that good stuff. We appreciate that so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a wonderful time. It's so nice to meet y'all.
And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.